Welcome back to another episode of Living Vividly. I'm Jackie Hidditch, your health coach.
And I'm Daphne Olivier, the original unconventional dietitian.
Today on Living Vividly, we're talking about coming back to God, not through rigid religion, but through curiosity, healing, and lived experience. Our guest is Sarah Mary Toce, a spiritual teacher and writer whose work bridges faith, science, and wonder. After experiencing real pain within the institution of the church, Sarah Mary chose not to walk away from God, but to stay, heal, and explore a deeper, more expansive spirituality grounded in everyday life. We're so excited to have her here.
Can you forward me that bio, please?
Sure.
That was beautiful. You couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Jackie. Really, I appreciate y'all so much for having me on.
So I definitely feel like there is some sort of spiritual awakening happening with people right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because our world is kind of in like crisis mode, mm-hmm. and we're kind of searching for the meaning of it all. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think a couple of things. I have no doubt that during the Great Wars, people said the same thing. It seems to me that when our society or world or situation is experiencing its deepest challenges, that's when the deepest thinkers and spiritual gurus, if you will, start to rise up as simultaneously.
Well, and I would say that whenever people just individually experience big challenges is whenever they start to really look in and start, it's just kind of our
That's exactly right.
Seeking some kind of information, some kind of purpose, some kind of reason. So I think
we are the
board.
Microcosm of the larger, or we're the macro of the micro, or the micro of the macro. That's exactly right. I think you deal with suffering in one of two ways. You let it keep you down, or you let the bone break and heal stronger afterwards. And I think that in an age too, where we're seeing not only our second largest technological advancements, post the internet becoming what it is now, AI. I think our society is craving human connection. And even if we can't name it because our phones maybe satiate some of that connection, I think that we still know the difference between artificial and real, even if we can't really tell that maybe in videos that we watch, but we can tell it when we're speaking with another. And so I just think that there's a deeper craving for more. And I think that it's a craving that maybe a lot of people can't necessarily name and don't exactly know how to satiate. But I'm hoping that my platform offers some of that nourishing food, to answer that question for them.
So what would you say is the difference between spirituality and God?
Spirituality and religion, or like God in general?
I don't know. Maybe like all three of them.
I think spirituality is the path to God. So I don't think that they're opposed. I think one is the how and one is the why, Religion in its finest was supposed to also be that. At its finest, religion is an attempt to help people access God in a tangible, physical, spiritual, real, quick way. At its worst, it does the polar opposite. And I think that, I'm a traditional Catholic. I would consider myself Catholic, but I love to say that I'm wonderfully misunderstood because down here, I get called a liberal. Up in the North, when I was studying at Boston College, I was called a conservative. So I'm perfectly where I want to be, perfectly misunderstood, right in the middle. As I say, totally Catholic, they can't put me in a box, and I like that. But I think that at its worst, religion does what in the Bible we saw Pharisees do, which was make it too hard for people to access God. And so my efforts, I'm a proud Catholic, and I'd love to see people who have left the church come back, but that's not what I'm forcing. That's not my invitation. I'm going to operate as I operate with who I am. But my invitation is just to try to help people encounter God again. And if He desires them to walk through an institution or to do it in nature, that's God's prerogative. Mine is, my heart breaks knowing people don't know the love of God. That's what kills me, because I know it, and when you know it, you want everybody to have it. And so that's the only thing I'm trying to bridge. And the rest, the details, that's up to what their personal relationship with Christ.
So a few weeks ago, I had the honor of meeting Dr. Lisa Miller. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her.
I've heard of her.
She's like a neuroscientist. She's a professor
Is
at
she the
Columbia.
Awakened Brain?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
She's amazing.
I cannot believe you got a chance to meet her.
Yes, we talked for a few minutes. She's awesome.
I'm a fangirl.
I really like her, and I'm in the middle of the book. But she talks about how we're all innately spiritual. Like that's just who we are.
Yes.
And religion is just like the extra, like the step 2, I guess, of that, to try to explain that spirituality that's within us.
Yeah. I mean, the Catholic Church would hold the spirituality and the religion simultaneously, again, when she's at her finest. However, I think that we're evolving creatures, and like to the very fact that science has proven that our brains are half asleep when they're not utilizing their mystical components, and that you're not fully alive, fully seeing, or fully experiencing the world without a sense of something greater than yourself. It's literally what the church teaches about having the imago Dei, the image of God imprinted on our very beings. I mean, we have eternity, a desire for eternity imprinted on our very spirits, and science is now proving that, and so it's a compliment. It's a great first step into spirituality. It's beautiful, and it absolutely complements a lot of what, again, the church at her finest really can offer people a way to use that mystical experience and put it into a tangible communal church.
Religion is very cultural. Like wherever you were born geographically will almost dictate what your religion is going to be. And in my opinion, and this could be wrong, you're the master of theology,
please.
Religion is trying to explain, like you said, the why and the how of what that, like we're all on the path, or if you have any spirituality whatsoever, or if you believe in something whatsoever, I think it's all the same thing. And that there are so many different ways that we have tried to explain it. I think that's very fair. I think anything will, wherever you're born, if I was born in South Africa, I would absolutely be a different person. I don't know if I'd be Catholic or not. There's no way to tell. I think there's actually something in the Catholic tradition. It's called anonymous Christian or anonymous Catholic, and it's this idea that anywhere that there is truth, there is the God that we believe in, and He is actively calling people to their highest self, their highest consciousness, their highest happiness and satisfaction. And so it's sort of this way to really embrace God's mercy and love and presence in a much larger scale, even if we don't agree on the exact terms and conditions.
Well, so I think terms, when you said terms, I'm kind of going back with kind of what Diston said, trying to organize it all in my brain.
Please.
So I read once that spirituality is inside out, Christianity is outside in.
Outside in. Interesting.
Okay.
What do you think, Daphne?
I think that everybody has a soul and a spirit, and so that creates your spirituality. Some people are more aligned with that, and some people are very distant from it, but it's all within us.
Sure.
The word God, to me, always rubs me the wrong way.
Okay.
It's just like it's because in my mind, God is equated with a church, and a church is man-made, and so in its finest, I like the way that you said it, at its finest and at its worst. At its finest, I don't know that I've ever seen the church at its finest in my lifetime.
Sure.
So I have a hard time saying that God is what I should be aiming for, because in my mind, that equates to a church that is faulted by human.
Right.
And so I can say that I'm very spiritual.
Sure.
But I would never say that I am on a path to follow God, because those are two very different things in my brain.
So there's a philosopher who said that God is the greatest thing that could be thought of. So whatever you call God, it's not this Gandalf in the sky, it's not this caricature of this bearded man, weighing the scales back and forth. It is the greatest thing that you could think of, and nothing greater could be thought of. Who is that?
Than which nothing can greater can be conceived. Saint Anselm of Canterbury.
Saint Anselm.
An 11th century monk and philosopher.
Can you read that again?
God is defined as the greatest possible being, or that than which nothing greater can be thought.
And he goes on to say that if God is the greatest, if no greater thing can be thought, the only thing that could be greater than a thought is the physical thing itself. And so God, therefore, must be the greatest physical thing that which no greater thing can be thought or exist. And so I think that what that does is it opens you up just to the something bigger than you. You know, just whatever it is bigger than you. And I so appreciate this like struggle with the humanity of the church because it's so painful. And I think like if I would have been on this podcast pre my broken heart, I would be happy to derail, you know, just like berate her. I am grateful. It is a great irony that which I loved hurt me and healed me simultaneously.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure.
That journey for you? Like
sure. You know, I don't want any audience misunderstanding me. You know, I have not experienced the worst hurt that the church has inflicted on some of the most vulnerable. I simply went into the institutional processes of the church with this doe-eyed, deep Southern experience of God, who was all love, and the church was like a mother figure for me, and she was guiding me and shaping me and teaching me how to be in the world. And I just thought, okay, well, once I go to school, once I start working in the church, like it's going to be all these people who love Jesus and are just striving to be the best versions of themselves and just bear goodness to the world, and who can receive feedback and only want good for others. And
sounds like a utopia.
Boy, was I wrong. Yeah. Boy, was I wrong. You know,
that's how it should be.
It's how it should be. I think what I did with the church.
Well, and to be fair,
please,
I think that's how it should be. That's how a lot of people, I think, go into the church experience with that expectation.
Because that's what we're taught.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're taught. This is the message of Christ, you know? And so when you say, okay, well, if church is Christ bearer, certainly she'll look like her mate, you know? And then when you experience the brokenness of humanity building this beautiful thing, and man, it's heartbreaking. And I think what happened was my safe space, this safe church that I created, I realized she was so dangerous, and in a beautiful and in a broken way. She was more wild than I anticipated. And I had to come to grips with that. The only reason I stayed was because of my belief in what the Catholic Church teaches about the Eucharist. It's just my experience of it. I've had some deep spiritual encounters, and so it was like my heart had closed almost completely, except there was this one little sliver of light that just kept calling out to God and saying, you know, if I go to any other church, they're going to have the same humans. How am I just going to flip the coin all of a sudden? You know, it's going to be the same brokenness. Maybe it'll be nice for a little while, but then what? You know, then what? And my worldview was shaped by Catholic tradition. So how do I stay, heal, and continue? Because I was at a point of just like, I can't keep being here and I can't leave, you know, and what am I going to do? And so through some, you know, it was 5 years of processing my experience. And again, like a lot of people have had way worse encounters, but for me, this was earth shattering because my dream was I'm going to get my master's. I'm going to start in the institution. I'm going to end up in Rome. I'm going to speak on women's issues. This is the plan. I'm going to learn Italian, easy peasy, right? Like game plan, you know, I'm going to change the world, change the church, you know, transform her into the beautiful body of Christ she's supposed to be. And then I was
bold.
I know,
That's very bold.
Well, you know, I felt
kudos
called
to you
to
for
it.
dreaming that big.
Oh, thank you. You know what I realized though? I don't have to give up the dream to transform her from within in a way that makes her truer to herself. But it's not going to happen at the highest levels. You know, that's not where transformation is going to happen. Not right away anyway. And I think my God would be way more pleased with feeding his sheep, you know, feeding his sheep and not trying to change, you know, whatever. And, you know, and I like to be careful with the word change because like, I would consider myself a traditional Catholic. I think a lot of people would disagree, but what I experienced, and I told Jackie I wouldn't be this bold, but she encouraged me to be, what I experienced is that, you know, in my master's, I was getting this like fiber-filled, solid food that I could barely digest, and it was coming in these huge chunks. And what I realized now was happening was not only was my brain learning, but my heart and my soul were learning. And so
your master's was in theology?
Divinity. Yes,
divinity.
Thank you, divinity. So theology. I was transforming as a person as much as I was as a thinker. And that is it was painful and it was overwhelming because it was like a tsunami, But then, I go to church and I feel like while there's such a wealth and an opportunity for this deep, life-changing, transformational information, people are being given baby food. And I don't know if that's because leaders think that's all a flock can handle, or that's all a flock wants, or they have pressures to maintain status quo so that their church can stay afloat, or they don't have time to pray with the Gospels, or I don't know what the reason is. And I want to be empathetic to the plight of the leaders. But at the same time, I'm trying to find that middle ground where there are the people who know they want more, but they don't know what more is. And if I could take the big fiber food and just water it down so that it's edible, and then it can nourish and feed in a deep and meaningful way. That's what I want. That's what I want to do. It saddens me that I had to take 3 years of my life to go and get all of this. And this was the only way I could do it, was by getting a master's. Not everybody has the desire, calling, or time to do that. I was blessed to have all that. So I feel like it's now my responsibility to give it back, to the truly hungry.
Can you give an example of what that would look like?
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. So I just did a 5-part series at a local church called The Mysteries of God. And it's this idea, I think we sit around here and we're like, Jesus Christ is, as Catholics, we believe, the fullness of revelation. So he told us everything we needed to know about God. Okay, so people say, okay, got it. Like, I know God now. I know him. Oh, you don't know God? It's Jesus. Gets done, right? Full stop. What they forget, I think, what I forgot was that an inherent part of Christ and his connection with the Godhead, a fundamental component of it is mystery. And so in a real way, like the popes have even said it, like a God that you can control is no God at all. A God that you can explain is not God. It's something you've created so you can push your own agendas forward or feel safe with this God. If an inherent part of who God is mystery, then that fundamentally means even though Christ revealed everything he could to us about God, there is still a component that we will never really understand on this side of what we call the eschatological divide, heaven, earth, but that we need to be transcended into, in a sense. So it's like, what does it mean to be in relationship with mystery? And not because it's not a mystery that you're going to solve, and you're not supposed to solve it. It's a mystery that's supposed to reveal more about God's infinite existence. Does that make sense? So that's the more I'm trying to offer.
That's why Jesus spoke in stories, parables.
Exactly.
Because it's impossible to actually explain to people.
I mean, haven't we all had an experience where it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but I can just tell you that I'm feeling it, it's just like being healed and broken through the same institution.
That's the spiritual side of it.
Actually,
Yes.
I was listening to, I'm pretty sure he's like a Hindu, some speaker. He was like, you cannot explain, you cannot define. It's so impossible to put into words. All you can do is experience it. You can only feel it. And then how do you even explain? Because when you experience something spiritual.
Well, and that makes sense because you don't explain it. You just help people get to the point where they can experience it.
And the way that I describe it, it's like, okay, so I showed up with my beautiful little Jesus, and what my masters did and my institution did was it ripped him open, and they just kept pulling him apart, not so that he broke into a million pieces, but so that he got bigger, so that I got bigger and I could experience this newness and this trueness of my wild God. I stopped taming him. He just made me capable of experiencing his wildness.
Do you think that the general population, because I'm sure you learned a lot of stuff that we just don't know, do you think that there's a reason why they're feeding us baby food? And do you think that the general masses can handle what the truth is?
Oh, Jackie, that's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful question.
I know what you're thinking. Conspiracy theory.
I am totally.
Oh yeah, really.
Oh yeah, she's definitely our conspiracy theorist. For sure.
I love it. Okay, that's so fun.
What conspiracy about this do you have one?
Yeah,
no, I think
or are you
that
actually just asking?
They're withholding information, essentially.
But I'm not coming from a conspiratorial. I'm just genuinely wondering if they can't there's so much to unpack with this. And I'm not super well versed in the Gnostic Gospels and all that stuff, but there is part of what Jesus talks about. God, I can't even quote it, but God is within us. He had the healing hands. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of energy work that he was doing.
Yes, 100%.
And I practice Reiki. I do those things too. And I do believe in God in the sense that I follow Jesus. I think he's awesome, but I'm not what you would call a Christian.
He's a great
per
prophet,
se. Yeah.
Maybe in your perspective.
Yes.
A wonderful prophet.
But I do think he was onto it.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's so much power behind God and Jesus that we can't handle it, or it would change the way we just live.
Our societal norms.
Everything would change. It's so hard to even say it in a sentence. It's too big for everyone to handle. Does that make sense?
It makes great sense. Please, Dustin, go for it.
So Sunday morning, I went to Catholic Mass and then followed it up by going to a Protestant church.
No, double whammy.
So, yeah, it was weird. And so it was interesting because in my mind, because I've been to both. I grew up Catholic and I dated a girl who we went just to Protestant sermons. Ceremonies. I don't know.
Services.
That's the word.
I got you.
I knew it started with an S sound. And so in my head, I was like, oh, I'll go to the Catholic traditional thing, and then I'll just, it's more like praise and worship at the service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel good stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it felt. But I was in Young Life and learned a lot through that because it taught you in a more practical way.
Yes. Beautiful.
And growing up in Catholic church, I didn't understand a thing that was going on.
They don't tell you how to apply any of it.
That's true. When you ask questions, there's no answer, and kind of belittled for questioning what they're saying is true.
Which I think is changing.
It is. Well, in certain circles.
In certain circles.
Okay,
it's trying to change.
So many things. Okay.
Go ahead.
So
you're the pro.
No, please don't. No, I'm a grower and a pilgrim with you all. No. Okay. First of all, okay.
We threw a lot at you.
It was beautiful.
It's okay.
First of all, who cares? That's what it is. I was at a wedding recently, and I was talking to somebody about racism and just how repulsive it is. And they said, but wait, you're Catholic, right? And they were like, so how can you be anti-racist and Catholic? And that was awakening for me. Now, this might be a personal perspective, but how terrifying that it has gotten to a spot. Religion has gotten to a place where they feel like atrocities, like certain people feel atrocities like racism and sexism even are not compatible with the Catholic Church. Like you have to be one camp that stunned me and broke my heart and really told me we need a societal change. Like we need an institutional transformation that begins to make the church look more like the heart of what Christ preached. And if there is a withholding of information, somebody told me this one time and it really comforted me in a deep way. God knows no barriers, and the only reason the Catholic Church still exists to this day is because she has been trying to blow herself up for 2,000 years and God won't let her end, And so I believe there is a God alive in our church. Keep trying to be a creative counter to what's going on in the institution. And I believe that there are times, if you go back through the history of the church, you see these moments of these great thinkers, honestly, often female, who would come out of the woodwork and be like, enough of this. You have lost your way. We are going back. We are going back to Jesus. We've let greed creep in, or we've let rigidity creep in. It is time to give the people Jesus again, and they help return the church back to their proper lane. And so I do not think people are incapable of receiving it, not as a whole, but individually. If they have gotten too comfortable with their comfort zone and are unwilling to be transformed by the word, man, then what are they even doing going to church? What are we doing even praying? Well, and this is what this is what has devastated me with the church, because the people who were considered leaders in the church, some female, some men, where I worked, they said they were praying every day. They said they were praying every day, but the way that I was treated did not feel like they were praying, And I'm like, what are we doing when we pray if not confronting our weakness and asking to be better? So if we are not open, that is a personal problem. The church should not be taking into consideration the infertile soil, as we call it, the rocky ground. The church should only be there to offer the rebellious message of Christ. I mean, when he went, Christ didn't care if he wanted the Pharisees to receive his word. He desperately wanted them to come to him, but it didn't stop him if they didn't, because his whole objective was to get God to those who desired him and who needed him most desperately. And that should be the only concern. That should be the only concern of the church. So if society is unwilling, that's a personal problem. The church should not take that into consideration, and she should be brave and bold, because there are people desperate for more, and they're the fertile soil. I also sat in a classroom one time where a priest had the audacity to say that there's no question we could ask him that he could not answer. And and I was like, okay, let me try to give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he meant in church history specifically, or, maybe he meant, I don't know, in this one lane. It was a very bold claim, and again, very disappointing, because again, if he can explain God, then he's not giving God. If he's not humbled, in the word is yirah in Hebrew, it means wonder and awe. It was only used in the Bible actually when we talked about the Godhead or parents in the original text. But it's this wonder and awe of your God. And even St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the greatest theologians, a doctor of the Catholic Church, which means he has fundamentally shaped the theology that the church believes. He was writing the Summa Theologia, thousands of pages. He has an encounter with God in a mass, and he says, everything I've written is straw. Not because it was wrong, but because it still wasn't enough to capture God, because we're not supposed to. And so there's this point of the church isn't supposed to have all the answers. She's just supposed to open you up to the comfort of the mystery.
So would that have to be Catholic church? I mean, so I had an experience in Asheville where, with one of my very good friends, we were in Asheville visiting them, and they were like, hey, let's go to church. It's called Chocolate Church. Oh. And have you ever heard of Chocolate Church before?
Sounds amazing.
It sounds delicious.
Amazing. It was outside, so we went into the woods. There was a pavilion, and it was basically a cacao ceremony. Oh. So they had this cacao that was someone made with all the things, it had cayenne pepper in it, and ginger, obviously cocoa. I'm sure I'm missing. There was a lot of stuff in it. And so just like the body of Christ, they would pass around this cacao, and everybody would have a sip, or we put it into little cups, I think. And then people would go up, and it was not church.
Sure.
In the sense that it wasn't a building. There was a guy that was kind of leading it, but he wasn't preaching the word to anyone. It was just so that you could be in nature with other people that have spiritual feelings kind of all in one place. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of, whenever I think of church, mm-hmm. that's what I think of, is just a place where everybody can experience something that is spiritual. So mm-hmm. I think church comes, like, the word church should just be like a similarity of, I guess, ideology.
I mean, I think obviously, like, the Catholic tradition has some specifics around church. It's not just the building. It's really the communion of people. It is the communion of people. Mm-hmm. We forget that as Catholics sometimes. And honestly, when I was challenged with that thought, I didn't like it very much. Because for me, it was institutional church. That was my church in my doe-eyed view. But then, here we are. So I think you're tapping into something very true, that the communion is significant. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, and you can check me on this, Dustin, it was either Gregory of Nazianzus or Gregory of Nyssa, and I don't know which one, who said that God's fingerprints are all over nature. And so there is this truth in experiencing what I would call God or spirituality in nature. And I think that as a Catholic, what we try to invite people to, or again, at our best, what we're trying to invite people to is say, yes, like, go experience the fingerprints in nature and encounter your God. Because, like, he's closer than your next breath. He's everywhere. Experience him. But if we as an institution could get it right, but come to the church and receive the sacraments, which we feel like are the fullest experience of God on earth. We don't present it that way very well, and we get rigid instead of awed. So I don't think it's not exactly the same, but there is a thread that's absolutely aligns that truth of what you experienced.
We talked about this on the phone whenever we spoke before, but I have had, the ups and downs of experience with church, and grew up Catholic, left the church, did the Protestant thing, was really hurt by that, and just, I'm done, no religion whatsoever.
Right.
And then we started going up to Michigan a lot. My husband is from Michigan, and we would spend months just in the woods. And the peace and the wonder and awe that you experience just seeing this world, and just, you go hiking and you see the lakes and just all the different beautiful landscapes that are on this earth. And you're like, wow, how can anyone, it's like a piece of art. Like,
it is.
Someone made this. And then a couple years ago, I started my kinesiology degree, and I went to this biology class, and I'm learning about the cells and all the processes and how it all just works. And it's this little universe in this speck that you can't even see, and just how everything works beautifully together. And it's so obviously divinely created. Some either mastermind or psycho, like something miraculous happened to make all of this happen.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's Gandalf in the sky or if whatever, but it's so obvious that it's something.
It is.
And
like I told you, I had that science teacher who took a puzzle. It was like in the 7th grade, and he threw it up in the air and then let it hit the ground. And he said, to think that there was no creator in the process of evolution, or, the way the world works, the odds would be, if I could throw this puzzle up in the air, it would make itself and then land perfectly on the ground. Like, the odds of it being this way, but it demands a mastermind and a creator, but that doesn't negate evolution and science. God, like, why would we hold God to the 7-day narrative and not let him have the power to allow us to participate in creation. Like, that is a bigger God to me that would involve us in the very creation and evolution and progress of the world that he master planned, you know? And I just, it saddens me because, like, my husband and I actually want to start a little series because he calls God the why while science is the how. And we want to talk about how there are some beautiful truths in science that really can, if you take a deeper look, can really reflect truths in spirituality. And there's a beautiful commingling because, again, like, we don't, like, science doesn't have to fear God and God doesn't have to fear science because it all points to something so much bigger than us and more beautiful, you know? But again, like, that scares people, you know, they take more comfort in knowing that it was as it was literally in the Bible, and it's safe there.
Or the opposite,
or
where they
opposite.
find more comfort in the science.
Thank you, yes.
And they don't need to worry about the spiritual or the mystical.
That's exactly right. That's like, exactly right.
It's the two of them together.
Why
it's
not?
just like
why
mind-blowing.
not? Yeah. And this really just reflects Lisa Miller's, you know.
I was just thinking about it. Like, she got so much pushback. She was trying to do this research about
spirituality.
I'm totally going to steal her story, but she was working in a prison and they were doing, she got some pushback from the prisoners that they weren't doing, she's Jewish, so they weren't doing whatever the Jewish holiday was.
Right.
And
I actually think I thought it was when she was at the psych ward.
That's what it was.
Yes. Yeah. No, please.
Sorry.
I read the book. You're going to get there, girl. It's so good.
So anyway, like, she started seeing all these positive changes in the patients after they did their Jewish ceremonies. And so she started doing all this research into people that had a spiritual practice, and it didn't necessarily have to be religious whatsoever, but the people with spirituality that had any sense of something greater than themselves had insanely higher, like, happiness levels,
right?
Like, anxiety was lower, just
resiliency was
everything.
up. And actually, it was even greater in the people who had suffered more, like, because not just spiritually positive people that had, like, a lovely evolution in their life, you know, with, of course, minor sufferings, but like, the more you suffered and the more spiritual you were, the healthier and deeper that grew,
which is wild.
It's crazy.
Because
see, and that makes so much sense to me.
I know. Well, in the Christian tradition, in the Christian narrative, you know, the cross, you know, but
and even in Buddhism, like, everything is how you handle suffering, really. So it's like, if you can make your suffering something better, something bigger, it's just amazing.
Like, again, it's like breaking a bone or exercising. I mean, why do we tear down our muscles? Like, you know, to make them stronger. Why do when you break a bone, it grows back better? You know, I mean, it's literally written in our DNA that suffering can arguably make something even more beautiful, you know, which is, you know, really hard to swallow when you're going through it. But man, like, when you come out the other side, it is, you know, you thank God for it, but you never want to do it again.
Yeah,
you know?
like, please don't
do
that
next.
Again.
But wow. You know?
Running back to the odds thing about like the puzzle with the odds of it all falling in the same place. Have you heard the odds of the fulfillment of the prophecies?
No.
So Jesus basically fulfilled like over 300 prophecies written in the Old Testament and all that. And a mathematician ran a bunch of numbers to see like what the odds of that would be. Like, sure, he could go through the Old Testament and be like, okay, I'm gonna start with this one, I'm gonna go to this one, I'm gonna go to this one. But the odds of him being able to and doing just 8 is 1 in 100 quadrillion.
Okay, my husband is an engineer and he's going to love this statistic because we were just talking about this stuff.
So that's just 8 of them. And 1 in 10 to the 17th. So 1 in 100 quadrillion.
Yeah, it's a big number.
48 of them, which still isn't hit the 100 mark, is 1 in 10 to the 157th. Which is 1 followed by 157 zeros. And so it just keeps going up from there. And I think that's crazy.
It is.
Like, a lot of people think, yeah, sure, he could have just gone through the Torah.
And he did. I mean, he was raised on it.
And he knew it.
He knew the narrative. Yeah.
Even with somebody with all the knowledge and all the capabilities, that's still the odds of being able to do that at the right times, in the right moments, in the right way, which is crazy.
And, you know, and like, while like for me, like, and maybe you, Dustin, like, we believe Christ is God, you know, even if somebody with y'all's openness could simply say, great prophet, great leader, I think we're close, like we're getting close, like we're, and you're still open to something beautiful, like you're still an open vessel that God can pour into. I think there are some people, and I could be very guilty of this, like the safety of the rigidity actually closes us off to the being poured into. We have to get out of our safety and our comfort and really the black and white, It's so hard to tread this line, knowing the audiences and the way people can interpret messages. But, like at some point, I work on this with my spiritual director a lot. Like, I just have to say what I feel called to say, what God has put on my heart, the way that I've interpreted the materials and my lived experience, and be authentic and honest. And if somebody much more brilliant than me can help me nuance to be even clearer, wonderful,
I feel like it's everybody's individual responsibility to do that for themselves.
I appreciate that, Daphne.
I mean,
I
it's
really
not
do.
your responsibility to teach me that. It's my responsibility to understand and be open enough to recognize that there is something bigger than me. And whether I call it God or Jesus or spirituality or whatever term I put on it, that's not your responsibility to do for me. That is my own responsibility to do for myself.
I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that, because, it's like, this is obviously an intimate topic,
Right.
And I
think there's a mix, though.
Please.
Yeah, people do seek it out, and then they want you to...
The believers, followers of Christ, believe they're called to disciple, right? And,
yes.
So, but I like that, because I like the idea of, when you're open, I'm ready to talk, kind of idea.
But isn't that what Jesus did?
Yeah.
I mean, met people at the well,
Yeah.
met people, at the tax booth. I mean, like...
So this feels like religion and politics are the two things that you never want to talk about.
We just did a whole podcast on it.
We haven't covered politics yet.
No, don't.
Please no.
No.
Just kidding.
But I feel like it's kind of like the situation of, if I'm interested and I ask questions, then yes, I'm opening a door for you to give me your feedback and your lived experience and that sort of thing. And I'm not talking about you specifically, but just in general.
Universal.
But for people, I do find it offensive when there are certain religious practices or whatever, where people are coming and knocking on my door and trying to share their thoughts and their word of Christ from their perspective when it wasn't asked for.
Yes.
And I think that's, I do find that offensive. And I would compare that to politics, because I have a person in my life who, no matter how many times I have asked,
set the boundary, you mean?
Set the boundary, very hard, rigid boundary, it gets crossed. And so I feel like I would put those kind of in the same parallel, that if I'm coming to you, if I'm coming into the church, obviously I'm wanting more. I'm wanting something. I want to learn. I want to learn about Jesus. If I'm not coming into the church, it is not your responsibility or your role to project that on me.
I appreciate that.
And
projecting is way different.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about, sometimes I'll just turn my head whenever people start talking about religion, because I have my own feelings and I have my own view, and it's not my responsibility to try and convince you to be what I think, and it's also not your responsibility to convince me that you're right.
And and I think there's a fine balance, because like for me, it's like, man, for a long time, like I was like embarrassed to say I got a master's of divinity and I want to do this speaking career about God, like, and I still feel a little bit a tinge of that, of like, what am I doing, and like, but there is a balance of like needing to respect people, and if there's been an invitation and an openness, or like, and just being myself. Like, my world is framed by a view through Christianity, and the Bible correlates to my life in practical ways. And so sometimes when I'm telling a story, that's just how I tell it. It's just my framework. What is my intention here? Is it to convert you, or to just be share authentically? That again falls on us to discern individually.
And I would say, I can relate to that too, because my world revolves around food and wellness. So if I'm in a family gathering and somebody starts
Please stop telling me that I shouldn't eat this.
Somebody starts talking about, the common thing.
Daphne won't eat this though.
It's that sort of thing. Or I wish I could lose 5 pounds, and I see what you're doing, and I don't feel like it's my place, though, unless I'm asked. If someone says, Daphne, I need to lose 5 pounds, what would you recommend? okay, well, how much time do we have?
Right.
Because we can go sit in the back,
I'm
back
gonna map
room
it out for you right now.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it. But
That's a
unless
really
I'm
good example,
asked,
honestly.
it's not,
It is.
You know, it is not my responsibility to thrust that on someone unless they are specifically asking for my opinion.
I really appreciate that. I really and to present yourself as authentically you. Like
Right.
you're not gonna fill your plate with things that don't. You know what I mean? So I'm not
Also
gonna
a good
show
example,
up.
yeah.
I'm also not gonna show up not a Christian.
Right, and
not
so
a
that's
Catholic.
who you are. Like
Right.
my back, everything in my world is health wellness. Like that's
I
how.
appreciate
So
that,
that's
yeah.
the angle that I come at everything with.
Yeah.
Just like Christianity
Yeah.
and Catholicism is the angle.
My
so
worldview.
it's innately a part of who I am.
Exactly.
But also, there's a boundary where I have to respect other people's in my family, not everybody has a tinge of health and wellness. And so I can't thrust that on them.
And Jesus even said in the Bible, like, if you go into a town and they close the door on you, shake the dust from your feet and walk away. He never said, pound that door open until they hear the mess. He said, no, they're not ready.
I think people
And that's what everybody thought he was coming to do.
Right.
Like that was the whole thing. Like
Right.
everyone's like, he's coming to destroy everybody who didn't believe, to destroy.
That's right.
He's like, no, I'm here to
gently invite you to the feast, not to hold your hand and drag you kicking and screaming.
But you're also not judging people, and
God,
you're not,
no.
I think that there's such a fine line of, people will see, just like Daphne,
that's the point.
and just
I mean,
like
Right.
you,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
the point.
okay, I will see, you seem happy, you seem fulfilled, you seem like you have this understanding, and even if they might not be deeply religious or anything, just like curious.
It's such a better
what's
posture.
she got going on that I need to know
Yes.
about.
It's such a beautiful posture. Yes.
we're taught that like the whole we don't have to push it on people, but if we fill ourselves up so much with Christ, it'll overflow
That's exactly right.
into other people.
That's
like
exactly right.
we don't pour out what we don't have. We want to overflow into other people to where it does come off that way, to where it's like, wow, I feel great when I'm around these people. And it is an energy thing.
What's up with her? Yeah.
Right.
And it becomes that openness of, hey,
it invites people. It's an invitation. It's an invitation. It's just, and man, we've been raised as Catholics to think about this discipling thing, and I don't know.
Well, and it's weird when you don't fill yourself up first.
There you go.
And that's where
exactly
you see all the people that are like,
there's so many Catholics that I do not think are good people.
Okay,
and
absolutely.
There's also a lot of Protestants and a lot, whatever.
Right. All people, but yeah.
We are a heavy Catholic
We are.
population down here.
We
so
are.
I think a lot of people might get a bad taste in their mouth because of specific encounters with specific people.
Jackie, that right there.
Generalized forever.
And that is what breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it is so, because it takes a split second to close somebody off to all of the possibilities.
For years, it was like, well, Catholics are very judgmental and they're the most hypocritical, judgy, rude, whatever, blah, blah, blah people.
And it's like, and yeah, like we are, because we're human, like, and it's no different for anybody in any other religion. But when we hold ourselves to the standard of what we feel like Christ taught us to be, we have so much farther to fall. And no, we're not always going to be perfect, but the least we could do is be decent constantly, I am po-body perfect, and we learn this in an intimate way in the humanity of the church, but there is there's a higher responsibility on us that as Catholics we just do not take seriously enough in every moment. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I have road rage. Like,
I was about to bring up road rage.
Oh my God. Like, I came from Boston, it's a very different driving experience. Like, I have some serious road rage, and like, I try to turn off my phone when I'm in the car because God forbid it record me. We all have our blind spots, okay? Right. Like, nobody's perfect. Nobody's asking Catholics to be perfect. But if we mess up, we are asking for an apology, a sincerity of heart. Man, turning people off to the church is so easy. Turning them back on is very, very hard. And we risk
God
a lot.
In general.
It is God in
just
general.
Catholic.
Thank you. Yes, God in general. I mean, we risk a lot when we get it wrong. And we just will, because we're imperfect. But there is a certain level of, like you said, Daphne, where you do have to take responsibility for your actions at some point and acknowledge that, you have turned yourself off to transforming yourself, and therefore you're turning everybody off to something very important.
Well, and I think part of the challenge with just church in general. And I know that I'm giving off this vibe like I'm not doing church at all.
It's
but
okay.
Part of the challenge with church in general is that church is built by man. It's built by human. And so because human, there are always flaws. It's flawed to some extent. So with any church, it's going to be, there are flaws in the way that the church is run, the way that, the message that's given out, there's always a flaw.
Can I just say that church is built by God, run by human, which still supports your claim,
sure,
but almost reinforces it because it's men trying to run something that was meant to be divine.
Yeah, divine. Yeah.
And so that's where all the imperfections and
it was built on the back of broken men. I mean, King David, the man after God's own heart, killed a man to marry his wife, that became a man after God's own heart. There's supposed to be comfort in the imperfection, that like God calls the imperfect, the most broken, the most weak people to his bosom to be the greatest. But instead, it's become a power trip. Leaders forget their servants first. Servants forget, what their leadership role is. We've lost sight. We've just lost a little sight, and this could probably be a critique made throughout the ages.
For sure,
definitely.
For sure, because
Lord,
it's always been run by mankind.
Yes,
and so many atrocities have been performed in the name of religion, not
just, but yes,
just like all of them.
Yes.
Wars.
So that scares a lot of people. It's like, wow, what a dangerous thing. Why would I go anywhere near that?
Right. I mean,
but it's again. People, it's humans,
and it's fair,
twisting it.
And it's like, to be somebody who loves this church that can fairly be accused of things like this. It is a weird place to be. It is a threshold I hold dearly, and I have to pray a lot about, because it's like I love the institution. I love what God gave me through the institution, which is access to the sacraments, which I feel is my fullest encounter with God on this planet. But then this deep, profound mystery of the perfection that awaits and that calls and draws us right here and now. And seeing the two, man, they don't look a lot alike at all. And actually, my spiritual director told me this before, because, man, like when I was healing from this just terrible wound from my experience in the institution, she said, you know what, Sarah Mary, we teach in the Catholic Church that hell cannot prevail over the church, over heaven. God already won it, we believe as Christians, because he died, he got everybody out of hell, brought them to heaven. The gates of heaven are now open. Anybody can access it if they choose it. It's the narrative. But that doesn't mean the gates don't shake. It doesn't mean something doesn't get through. It doesn't mean when you're sitting in the pew, you can't smell the sulfur, coming out. It doesn't mean you don't feel the heat. It doesn't mean it's not impacting us, because it is, it is impacting the church, but it will never win victory. But man, it takes a hard punch sometimes, and it hurts people. And I think that if we can't, as Catholics, truly wrap our arms around that deep truth, then we'll never love the church authentically. We're going to create this caricature of her perfection and love this fake symbol and be fake Catholics until we wrestle like Jacob did with the angel, break our hips like Jacob did to be reborn Israel, to be reborn a true believer. We're going to have a shallow experience, and we're going to offer a shallow well. But if we can be broken and healed, we can offer something so much more meaningful and powerful and satisfying and healing, and hopeful and open, who tells a story of 3 people, 4 people with such diverse backgrounds calmly sitting in an environment, listening and sharing. Typically tables are flipping right now, but this is such a beautiful opportunity. And quite frankly, I could think of like 10 Catholics right now who are probably flipping tables angry at me, that would hate, this. I can think of 100 more who love it, but it's just to say, like you said, Daphne, I can't take responsibility for everybody. I can only do what I feel like is authentically, meant for me to do, and offer what I believe the research and the experience and the church has taught me. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
Well, what are you up to? I know that you just started this new speaking career.
Yeah.
You were I've seen you all over the place.
Oh, thank you. That's great. It's only been a few
like
posts,
the chamber,
too.
you were speaking over there, and
that's
all
right.
sorts of stuff. So what do you have going on?
Well, okay, so in building this, like I kind of said, there's a part of me that's really trying not to get super pigeonholed into Catholic speaking per se, not even Christian really, though it's hard for me not to be both.
You're going to bring it into whatever you talk about.
Yeah, I can't help it, So it's like, if I go speak at Apple, I'm going to have to be real careful, if they don't welcome it, But, it's this idea of a higher consciousness, a deeper understanding of the world around us, of encounters of ourselves and of the other. And so I did a 5-part series at a local church. I've been invited to do a half-day retreat at a local school. I was at the chamber doing a women in business conference because I do think that while my challenge maybe is more for a more masculine church, I do believe that women are probably more my main focus. Like they're probably more just where my heart is. So, women empowerment groups. I did something virtual for like something like this, basically, where it's a holistic approach to wellness and did just some spiritual leadership mentalities. So it's like this idea of human flourishing, which we have an intellect, aesthetic, morality, and spirituality. So we need truth, beauty, goodness, and unity. And so it's just this it's a more spiritual approach to leadership. It's this idea of don't throw the pizza party when the people need to feel valued, and don't let them get to a point where they need to feel valued. Create the environment where them as a whole person is elevated and flourished. And here's the map, truth, beauty, goodness, unity. So, like you said, Jackie, I'm just restarting. I've been speaking since I was 18 on everything from nutrition and fitness to now the real calling, which is spirituality for me, and just kind of trying to get the ball rolling. And opportunities like this really help me let people see who I am and see if I would be a good fit for whatever they might have going on. So we're just reigniting at this point. So I am open to booking for 2026 since we're currently in January.
That's great. Very good. Well, before we let you go, we always ask our guests one important question. It's, what does living vividly mean to you?
It means living fully alive. So it's a deeper look at self-care. So while self-care is really necessary as you get into states of burnout and you need to soothe that fire, human flourishing and living fully alive is something much. It's much deeper. It's less topical and more from within. And it's a state of being that exists through fire and through the good times.
Thanks for listening to Living Vividly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. For more resources and details from today's discussion, check out the show notes. Until next time, keep living vividly.